Yeah, good morning and also good afternoon from my side, Florian Siebauer. You might wonder, right, SAP Ariba, and now you see the title Supply Chain Collaboration and Direct Spend. And you might know Ariba from our catalog, self-service procurement, right, indirect spend. But that was, the SAP Ariba before. Now we're moving more and more of our processes into supporting direct spend of customers, supply chain collaboration, and that's exactly what we want to talk about today, about the two latest innovations we just released. Now, how does that fit all in the big picture? So what you see here on the next slide, and I have to say, sorry, the format was a little bit wrongly converted, but what you see, right, our SAP S4 as the solution, the digital core, right, the system of records. You have SAP Integrated Business Planning, our planning solution, the system of differentiation, and all of those solutions are quite focused, right, on processes inside of a company. It doesn't really include the supplier and those different kinds of suppliers, right, from the raw material component suppliers to contract manufacturers to logistic providers, and that's where Ariba comes into play, right? Ariba brings the collaboration aspects to our core solutions in our supply chain offerings, right? It really connects our customer, their ERP, their IBP system with the different types of suppliers. And that's exactly what's the value of Ariba, right? Additional collaboration with the business partners. Now, let's have a look how we got there. So Ariba, right, clearly comes from indirect procurement, right? We have a great user experience, right? Simple UI for the casual users, and of course, it's a cloud offering. So we have rapid deployments, we have fast innovations. So we move from quarterly innovations now to monthly innovations, and we have the world's largest business network, right? And what we did now, we added to our already really strong Ariba solution set, right? The best of SAP. The understanding of end-to-end business processes, right? Because as soon we're talking about direct spend, it cannot be just in an Ariba environment. It has to be really end-to-end, and also what we applied an industry focus, right? Industry focus, so we really distinguish now between different industries, industry sectors, discrete, process, and also retail, right? And that was also something which was not known at Ariba before. No surprise, right? Due to the fact that it was indirect procurement. So now, strong industry focus, and also, of course, with SAP, we have now, scale and also globalization. And we didn't do that alone, right? We really collaborated with the best customers in the industry, and you see some of the names here, right? BASF, the German chemical giant, ThyssenKrupp, Microsoft, Merck, P&G, HP, as design partners to make sure that we really build those processes for direct spend, supply chain collaboration in a way that it's really, provides most of the value to the customers and also is relevant for that specific industry, but can be applied across different industries. So really a combination of SAP Ariba, SAP, and also the understanding and the process knowledge of our customers. And we have a lot of great customer assets out there which you want to take a look at. Now, Ariba for direct spend. Here you see the whole process, right? It's from sourcing, where you can find the right supplier, to the payment, right? And our Ariba for direct portfolio really includes or consists out of two solutions. One, sourcing for direct spend. You see that here at the beginning. And what that solution does, it allows you to collaborate closely with the suppliers, right? At an early stage, if you're a discrete manufacturer, right, you can connect the PLM system and push bill of materials, aspect of bill of materials into sourcing, find the right suppliers, get the supplier quotes back and adjust your designs, right, if needed, if you're beyond your target costs or if suppliers have better ideas. You can also use it for sourcing for the different types of material, for components, for services, right? Now, important here, right, when we're talking about direct spend, the Ariba process really ends as soon we have the right source of supply defined or a contract negotiated, then we hand off the results of that sourcing activity to the backend system because the operational procurement process happens clearly in S4 and Ariba. So that's one part of our offering, right? Sourcing for direct spend. In addition to that, we have a second solution, and that's exactly what we want to focus today, right? Supply chain collaboration. A supply chain collaboration solution which helps you to bring your IBP solution, your S4 solution, closer to the suppliers, and we talked about it, all different types of suppliers. But in the case of IBP, you can have unconstrained forecasts, which you then want to push to a supplier, right, and get supplier capacity commits and upsides back into your planning to really have a better planning result, right, on actual supplier input, not anymore on assumptions. Furthermore, our supply chain collaboration connects directly with ERP and S4 to help to do order collaboration, quality collaboration, inventory collaboration, and also all the collaborations around invoice and pay, and we will talk about that in more detail. So 2 solutions in that solution portfolio, but Ariba for direct spend is direct sourcing and also supply chain collaboration. That's important to understand. And let's continue now. Let's have a look at what we find, the situation at many of the customers, right? Maybe, you see that here on the left-hand side, no collaboration with the suppliers in an electronic digital way, or maybe, as you see here, point-to-point integration solutions, right? Like, EDI connectivity to the biggest suppliers. Of course, quite heavy, right? Quite expensive. Technical knowledge is needed from the supplier as well, and business knowledge is really in that connectivity. So that's really the old way of doing those collaboration scenarios. Or what you also find, it's just via email or fax. Now, if you take a look here on the right-hand side, right, that's now our way of doing that with SAP Ariba. So it's a multi-to-multi network. So we have different customers from different industries connecting their backend system once to the Ariba network. And with that one single connectivity, they have access to all those different types of suppliers in the Ariba network. So it's really a multi-to-multi connectivity. We have more than 3 million suppliers on the Ariba network, right? The most global and the largest business network in the world. That helps, right? Because with that one connection, you have immediately access to all of those suppliers, which are already on the network. The same value is there for the suppliers, because with their connection to the network, they can deal with all of their customers. Standardized processes, we will talk about those which are supported in our solution. And also there is the possibility to configure rules and business logic in the tool. Community intelligence is part of that. And as I already mentioned, right, quite simple, it's a single connection for buyers and sellers, and that adds a tremendous value. So you see we have, and I talked already about that, right, different types of companies connecting to the network. Right, that could be a discrete manufacturer, life science companies, consumer packaged goods, discrete manufacturers, and they connect to the Ariba network not just to those indirect suppliers who provide them with the office material. There you find now suppliers like contract manufacturers, raw material, component suppliers, distribution centers, right, logistic providers. So really the whole aspect of training partners, and you can really orchestrate now all of your processes through the Ariba network. Single network, right, and simply you connect your backend system. It doesn't have to be actually ERP or SAP, right? It can be any solution, and you can connect it to the network and start collaborating. And the same is true for the suppliers. Now, I talked a lot about the different aspects of the network, but let's look a little bit more into details of which solutions or which business processes are actually supported. And Franz will take that part.
Okay, yeah. Here's Franz. So maybe to start with the processes, we already mentioned that we have different collaborations with supply chain collaboration now, with planning collaboration. This would be the first process which we are talking about here. Like a buyer has a certain planning system. We position here IBP, of course, and we have a standard integration from IBP to Ariba. Supply chain collaboration, meaning the forecast which is determined in IBP, let's say on a material level, is shared over the network with the supplier, and the supplier can confirm the forecast. So it's a time series which is exchanged via the network to the suppliers, and the commit signal and commit time series is coming back into IBP, where we have a standard integration to come up with a more reliable plan. That's the whole purpose. You can also, of course, integrate with other planning systems like APO, but then the integration has to be done on a project basis. The messages which you see here, forecast, forecast and forecast commit. Those are all standard messages, CXML standards, which can be used to connect any backend system. I hope this animation works. Yeah. The next step is, of course, when we talk about the execution and the integration into ERP, we of course exchange purchase orders. But with the supply chain collaboration or direct spend, we also have to consider a lot of variances and a lot of different item categories. If you see here, for example, typically we raise a purchase order in the back end. It can come up from a planning process in ERP and MRP run, and then you convert the purchase requisitions into purchase orders. It goes over the network, and the supplier would then confirm the purchase order. The next step would be that he creates an advanced shipping notice when he's shipping the goods, and the buyer would then receive the goods. It would create an inbound delivery in ERP, and the buyer would post the goods receipt now, and this could also be sent back to the suppliers. The suppliers can see that the goods have been received at the buyer location, and then the whole invoicing and payment process starts. We also support self-billing and value-added receipt settlement process. So other variant of this is, first of all, that we switch the next process would be that we also support consignment purchase orders. That means you order parts and the supplier ships them, but they are still owned by the supplier, and only if you withdraw the components from the consignment stock, then it goes into your ownership, in the buyer's ownership, and then you see here a message is created which signals to the supplier that the components have been withdrawn, and then the payment can start. That's another message. We also support now subcontracting. That means when we outsource manufacturing operations to external partners like the contract manufacturer, you would, for example, also provision components as a buyer. This would relate to the component ship notice here on the left-hand side. The supplier or contract manufacturer would also receive the components. It could trigger a component receipt notice. And then you can share inventory data like subcontracting stock, snapshot of your ERP system with the suppliers and the contract manufacturer, so that he can actually validate whether he has the right number of components in his stock. And he can also provide progress, manufacturing progress information, work in progress information with the manufacturing visibility message, and also the consumption of components, of subcontracting components at his site. So all these messages support better visibility into the process and having more actual picture of what's going on outside. We also support then scheduling agreement releases. That's also typically very heavily used in discrete manufacturing industries, also in combination with consignment and subcontracting. We also now have started with the quality collaboration process already last year. The first message which we support here is quality notification. This can come out of an ERP system from the buyer, where, for example, if he receives a fault product, he would raise a quality notification, and then the supplier would need to respond. It could also be triggered by the supplier or contract manufacturer if there's something going wrong in the process. So both see these quality notifications and have to respond and to actually work on the resolution of the issue. Then we also have now, and that is something we go into a little bit more deeper later, in the quality inspection request message. So that also is tightly integrated with ERP, where you would, for example, do an inspection either before or after the goods received posting, that you would have a sample and you send an inspection request to the supplier who would then do the testing. The inspection itself would be done by the contract manufacturer, and he would actually also record the results into this quality inspection result message, sends it back to the buyer, and that would also be integrated into ERP. So if you go into the inspection plan or inspection lot, you would see the results there. What also is possible is that supplier can attach a certificate of analysis, which is also commonly used. And we also introduced, and that's another rather new feature from last year, Q4, the supplier managed inventory process. And this is also has, of course, some messages here that we will, as a buyer, you would share inventory situation and also min-max levels, and also you share the gross demand coming from your planning system, and the supplier would then replenish against this, keeping the min and max levels into account. And these kind of replenishment signals are sent back. And currently, it's done with a scheduling agreement, a schedule line, which is created in the buyer's backend system. So you see a lot of collaborations already. Of course, we will continue to extend this. I want now to go a little bit deeper into the actual new processes, which I was talking about already. So quality inspection is part of the quality add-on for supply chain collaboration, and we have, like I said, the quality notification. This is a message where you record and collaborate on exceptions or defects. And now with the quality inspection request, that's actually a message which triggers the inspection itself at the supplier side. So instead of sending emails or paperwork with the recorded values and inspection results, this is now automated. It's also highly integrated into ERP. So the first step would be to send this inspection request to the supplier. The supplier would actually record the results and, of course, perform the inspection itself, record the results back, and then you would, as a buyer, look at the results. If they are compliant and in conformance with the required specification, then you would make the usage decision. And this is another message which sends the supplier or notifies the supplier that the test results are okay. And the usage decision then, for example, would lead to subsequent process steps. So we have on the network, we have also business rules which can control a little bit the whole process flow. And one business rule could be, for example, that the supplier would need to do the inspection first. He would record the results. If they are okay, the usage decision is okay. Only then he can start shipping the products or creating an advanced shipping notice. That's a typical scenario we are talking about here. And here's another process flow diagram. So like I said before, normally you start always with an order. You have also a linkage between the order and the inspection, or you have a linkage between the order and a quality notification. That's, of course, there's a relationship. If the order is sent over to the supplier, he would first do an order confirmation that he would be able to ship or able to deliver. He would then, for example, in this scenario, create a shipment and a shipment notice, and then the buyer would ask him to do the inspection. And then the inspection results are sent back, maybe attached with a certificate of analysis. It could go back and forth, and eventually, like I said, the usage decision would indicate to the supplier that this is okay, and then he can do the invoicing. That's one example. And here you have a screen. I don't want to go now into each of the fields, but you see we have also the characteristics, the inspection lot characteristics, which we can display in the Ariba network UI for the supplier here. And you would see from the inspection characteristics that you, for example, you can enter quantitative data, but also qualitative results. And this is then according to the characteristics in the inspection lot. That's how it looks like. Now, if we go to the supplier managed inventory, the second biggest development last year, the whole process is different than dealing with purchase orders. There's normally, you would share, like I said, the gross demand, so with the supplier, and you would also share inventory information for a particular part together with min-max levels. And then the supplier would see a planning grid, like indicated here in this box in the middle. I have a bigger slide in the next slide. And then he would see like where the limits are. He would see the stock projection, and he would then do and create a planned replenishment supply. And this would be converted into, like I said, a scheduling agreement line in the ERP backend system. Here you have a screenshot of how it looks like for the supplier. He would select a particular part, and then he has key figures down there in the table, like the demand, the inventory, projected inventory, also stock in transit, or any other demand key figures. It's actually also configurable to some degree. He can configure own KPIs, which the buyer can configure this and can decide what to share with the supplier. And based on this data, especially based on the projected inventory situation, he can enter planned receipts, and this would be converted into scheduling agreement lines in the buyer's backend automatically. The whole process is to hand over the responsibility of managing the inventory to the supplier. So he is responsible to replenish in time and the right quantities, keeping the min-max limits into account, and this is then like in the supplier managed inventory process, which we support here on the supply chain collaboration on the Ariba network as well. We have also examples, of course, of, and this is a reference customer, Merck in the US, Life Sciences Pharma, and this was our co-innovation partner for the whole quality collaborations which we have. We are also doing additional developments, and there will be a release now in February where we also continue to deliver quality processes. This is called the quality review process, another collaboration with quality data, which we can share in the next session. But Merck is also highly outsourcing their operations. I think they have 150 or so contract manufacturers. Of course, this requires also tight integration with their backend system, also the visibility which we provide with the Ariba network. This is a great value for them.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye.